Hey guys, thanks for watching. So today we are kind of doing a bit of a comparison between the Apple Watch Series 3 and the Apple Watch Series 5. And not particularly in a spec showdown or anything like that, but in a, is it worth it upgrading to the high spec model? Now, the Apple Watch can seem like one of those really odd devices, and especially with some of the directions that Apple have gone recently. So pretty much every single Apple device, from the iPhone through to your Macs, all have a budget version or a budget-friendly version at the moment. You've got things like the iPhone SE, the new MacBook Air finally came down in price a little bit, and the iPads, now you can get the 10.2 model for a decent price. So the Apple Watch is a bit of a weird one at the moment because it starts at $399 for the Series 5, and you can get an iPhone or an iPad for that price. Which begs the question, where does it fit, especially with Apple's new budget-friendly lineups that they've got? Now, at first glance, there doesn't seem to really be a budget-friendly Apple Watch, but then we throw in this little guy, the Series 3, which is still available from Apple for $199 starting price. And the question is it worth it? So, at first glance, the major difference between the Series 3 and the Series 4 and 5 is the improved screen size. So on the Series 4, we finally got to see Apple kind of do this thing that they've been doing recently, which is using up the body size a lot better. So screen real estate is much bigger, but it retains the same size. So at first glance, you don't really notice a massive amount of difference between these two things. It's only when the screens come on that you start to see that difference. But the question is that really worth an additional $200 or pounds, depending where you're based? Now, some of you eagle-eyed viewers out there are going to be screaming at the camera right now going, hey, there's a little bit more to it than that. And yeah, there is. There's a lot of things going on underneath the hood as well, which make these two different models different and may sway your purchase price, whether or not you want to go for the more budget-friendly Series 3 or something like the Series 5. So some of the first things to mention is that the Series 5 has better health features. So we have an ECG tracker on this thing, so it's much better at detecting any anomalies with the heart, and it can certainly help you out in that sort of respect. And it also has fall detection. Now, if you ever watch any tech news or anything like that, you'll be seeing all sorts of different stories about how the Apple Watch saves somebody, whether or not it detects something going on with their heart, or it saves somebody after they fell off a bike, or when they're out hiking or something like that, and it alerted, obviously, the health services. Now, your mileage will vary as to whether or not that's going to be of any use to you. The Series 3 does still have its heart sensor on there, so it's still going to be great for things like workouts, just tracking your calories burnt throughout the day as well. So you do still have those features, albeit not quite as good as something like the Series 5. So one of the other major differences is that the Series 5 has an always-on display, which might come in handy for some people out there. It's not just about the size of the screen, but the fact that it's always on and it doesn't use up any more battery than the previous models, which is a massive win. And the major benefit of that is what you'll tend to find is when you're wearing an Apple Watch is you want to quickly glance at the time or something like that, and you sometimes have to do a bit of an obvious gesture, you know, kind of trying to flick your wrist or lift it like that. And if you want to do that subtly, it can appear quite rude. But the great thing is with something like the Series 5, because of that always-on display, you can just kind of tilt your wrist, have a quick glance, see what the time is, and if there's anything there that you need to take note of. Again, it's a quality of life feature, and your mileage may vary whether or not it's worth that additional $200, but it does come in quite handy. So the way that the Series 5 pulls that off is there is a better processor in there than the Series 3. And that's also worth bearing in mind as well, because at the end of the day, having a newer processor means that it's going to have a longer support from Apple. Now, the good news is that the new watchOS that's recently been announced at Worldwide Developers Conference is going to be coming to the Series 3. So it's not as though you'll be picking one of these up and it's going to drop off support. And Apple have gotten much better in recent years of supporting their devices for much longer. So I can't see the Series 3 just, you know, up and disappearing and losing support anytime soon. You'll at least get an additional year from it, as it's going to get the next version of the software that comes out. So I suppose the question is, are those upgrades worth the additional $200 you had to fork out? Now, I've stolen my wife's Series 3, which used to be mine before I moved across onto the new Apple Watch. And I've got to say, there's not a massive amount that I've noticed difference on this. Now, I do really like the additional screen size, and it keeps that same body, and I can share the straps across them. So when I did upgrade them, they use the same straps. I don't really notice any difference in size, but I like having that larger screen. At first, it was definitely noticeable, but now looking back at my wife's Series 3, actually, I'm not noticing a massive amount. This thing's coming up close to 3 years now, and it's still going strong, and it still gets an equivalent battery life to what I'm getting on the newer Apple Watch as well. So, you know what? The battery hasn't degraded that much on it. So the Series 3 overall is a pretty nifty little device. Obviously, the ECG was a nice little thing to have at the start, and I used to play around with it all the time, and I try and do an ECG scan at least once a day. But eventually the novelty wore off, so for me it was kind of just a novel feature that was there, and it's something that I just don't really use anymore. The one thing that I do really like is the louder speakers on the newer Apple Watch. So if I'm taking a call or anything like that, on the Series 3 it could often be quite painful and you'd kind of have to have your wrist up to your ear, and it wasn't the best experience. Whereas on the new Apple Watch it's a much louder speaker, so you can just kind of act a lot more naturally. If I'm doing any other tasks, or I'm in the kitchen, or if I'm at work, I can just talk and I can hear what the other person's saying. So that's worth bearing in mind. If you are going to be, you know, looking like a crazy person like me and talking through your watch, that does come in really handy on the newer Apple Watches. Series 3 you can still do it, but you'll need to be in a quiet place, so if you're driving or anything like that, it can be very difficult to hear, so it's worth bearing that in mind. If you need the best speakers for calls, the newer Apple Watch is going to be the one to look at. Both of the devices are waterproof as well, which comes in really handy for me because my children have grubby hands and they're always grabbing for these things. So it's nice if they, you know, get a bit mucky to be able to kind of wash them off. If we've gone anywhere where there's a swimming pool and stuff like that, you can keep them on and not worry about losing any of your health data. So no benefit with the newer Apple Watch. You're still going to get that on the Series 3, so you know that's a massive win at the end of the day. Now, honestly, I really enjoy wearing my Apple Watch. I wear it all the time and it comes in really handy, and I'm looking forward to the new software updates that come out later. And I suppose the question is it really worth it for the additional 200 versus something like the Series 3? And again, its mileage may vary, it's all down to you as a person, what you're using it for. So to be honest, I probably wouldn't have bothered upgrading from the Series 3 in hindsight. It offers a couple of different upgrade options, and there's some quality of life things on there that I really like. But at the end of the day, the Series 3 still holds up and it's an awesome Apple Watch. Now if you're on a budget, I definitely recommend going for the Series 3. And to be honest, even if you're not on a budget, the Series 3 still holds up. So you could put that money to something else, you know, maybe even an iPad or another Apple accessory, or hey, just pocket the cash and keep it for yourself. But there's a decent saving there and you're still going to get an awesome piece of kit on a budget. Now whether or not Apple bring out a new, I guess, budget Apple Watch in the future, I guess we'll see. Seems to be the route they're going recently. Like I said at the beginning of the video, we're seeing so many budget-friendly different Apple products. So I wonder if we'll see like an Apple Watch Series 6 and an Apple Watch Series 6 Lite or something like that down the line. But in the meantime, the Series 3 still holds up and is definitely worthwhile considering. I suppose we won't find out until the end of the year whether or not there'll be a new budget-friendly Apple Watch along with the mainstream Apple Watch. But like I said, Apple have been doing a great job lately of bringing out some budget-friendly things that allow you just to get into the Apple ecosystem rather than having to spend an absolute fortune on those things. Like I said before, your mileage may vary depending whether or not the additional 200 is going to be worth it to go for the newer Apple Watch. I guess that's all down to preference and whether or not you need those extra features. For me, like I said, in hindsight, I'd have probably stuck with the Series 3 just because, you know what, it's much cheaper than upgrading it. And I haven't really seen a massive amount of benefit, and I could just put the money to something else instead. So, hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button so we can continue bringing you awesome content. If you'd like us to do a deep dive on the new version of the watchOS, then do let us know in the comments below and we'll do our best to do that. The beta seems to be coming live at some point soon. I don't know if they're out just yet, but once they are live, if you want me to do a video, I will sacrifice my Apple Watch so that you guys can see what it's like and I can give you an overview of things like the sleep tracking features that are coming. Until next time though, stay safe, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button and we'll be back soon. Ta-ra!